Defining your process is a step that cannot be avoided. It may be something that you've never really considered, or it may be something that you're doing, but you've never given it any serious thought. The reason why you are going to have to give this process, this section of your writing life, the attention that it deserves, is because it is only in defining your process that you are going to be able to work the things that you're doing concerning your writing to your best advantage. If you are doing a writing process that you got out of anything on the internet, if your writing process matches another person's toe for toe, if the writer that you look up to the most, you and he or she share the same writing process, your writing process is not yours. It belongs to someone else. And you have to know that your writing process is yours for a reason. I was asked the other day, how did I become a better writer? How did I know when I could write a good story? Did it happen story by story, or what happened? And I really couldn't answer the question because it's a very ambiguous answer. But the one factor that I knew without a doubt was that once my confidence grew to the size that matched who I am as a person, then I knew that, you know what, not only are my stories worth writing, but my stories are worth being read by other people. Your writing process is for you to cut all of the BS out of what you think you're doing. Until you define this process for yourself, you don't know what you're doing. You just think. You believe that this is what you're doing, writing, but you're really not writing, especially if that process is something that you have copied and pasted from someone else. If this is your first time here and a word like T-writer is something that you don't understand at all, that's by design. And you can go through the other podcasts in other seasons, and there are a couple out there that have T-writer in the title, so it shouldn't be difficult for you to find exactly what I mean by that. In addition to that, if this is your first time here, you may not know this, but this is not the podcast where I tell you anything, most of all, as it relates to this topic, what your process is. Sometimes it's easier to understand what to do when you understand clearly what not to do, the antithesis of something. So here's my take on perhaps some things that you might not want to do if you want your process to actually belong to you and work for your own advantage. So number one, it should not be a carbon copy. I already stated that before, but I mean that. It should not be a carbon copy of someone else's. The only way that it should be a carbon copy of someone else's is if you trip over an article and you're like, oh, wow, Joe Blow writes exactly how I write. That should be a discovery, but it should not be something that you have written down as canon for the way that you are going to write your books. The reason why you don't want to carbon copy a T-writer's process is because, well, I hate to break it to you, but they don't think you deserve to be putting words down on paper in the first place. They don't think you deserve to be able to count yourself amongst who they think they are. So the second thing that I would say maybe you want to not do is don't be dishonest. Better stated, it has to be honest. Because anything less than that will keep your book an idea and never a finished product. Some may be asking right now, what the hell do you mean by the writing process? Because you're talking about a topic that I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure. Your writing process are those specific personal set of circumstances that have got to work in synergy in order to enable you to actually write your stories. This writing process phase really has little to do with editing. Matter of fact, it has, let me just say this. Your writing process is just that. It's the process that you do when you are writing your book. I suppose you could break that down into other subcategories, but I'm talking about when you are specifically getting your story out of your mind and onto the page. The set of circumstances or the variables that have got to be there in order for you to do that, that is your writing process. If you have heard you need to wake up before the birds and you need to put on the biggest cup of coffee you can find, and you need to intravenously inject it into your arm, and you need to buckle into your desk chair, and then you need to do a 5,000 word prompt, and now you're ready to write your story. If this is the kind of thing that you have been following, that is why you have not been able to get your writing to a state of completion and then publishing. That is why. Your writing process, number one, it has got to be honest. It has to be yours. It has to be true to who you are. Stop believing the hype about only the early bird catches the worm, and only if you use this dictionary or you write, and only if you use this word processor, and only if you have a MacBook Pro, and only if you use, a legal pad and a $25 ink pen. Are you catching my drift? If you write well between your breaks at work, simply because you need to escape the madness of the office, you're probably more productive in those 15 to 30 minutes than you will ever be anywhere else. Because you can be honest with yourself and you can say, my personality seems to really flourish when I'm under stress and I need to just run away from stuff mentally. There is no wrong way to do your process. That is what I am trying to get to. However intricate and however eccentric you are, writing is the only stratosphere where being exactly who you are is probably the only time that is welcome. The creative process welcomes you being exactly who you are and not trying to be like anyone else. This is the reason why there are writers that you admire. Because somehow, between the lines of the pandering, they show glimpses of attempting to free themselves from the constraints of who they think they should be. So the next thing that I would say is that, and all of these points kind of smush into one. So I am not trying to be redundant, but I am instead trying to be a little bit more detailed for those who might want me to break that down. So it can't be forced. Next, it cannot be forced. You are the only one who has your fingerprint. And like I said, unless you stumble into a process that's similar to yours, that's the only reason why you should find yourself sharing someone else's process. Your writing process, you know what the beauty of your writing process is when you take the time to define it, which is why it's such an important part of who you are as a free writer. It's because it won't change. Your writing process is it's your personality. I guess that's another word to say. Your process and personality in this isolated instance is synonymous with your personality. And usually, unless you have a lobotomy scheduled anytime soon, your personality will not change. And the reason why you know your personality or your process rather will not change is because, have you ever attempted to follow the advice of an article or some author or some video, whatever it was? Have you ever attempted to try that? And you tried it and it went well, didn't it? It went good for about, I don't know. Let me be generous and say a fortnight. But on the 15th day, it was almost like you didn't learn anything. What was that? It was that you can only contort yourself into a position that is not unique to you for so long before your body has to rebound and come back to its former state or shape. You are trying things and they're going good, but nothing is sticking, is it? It's because you are not defining your process and you are not giving yourself an opportunity to get it down in stone where it won't change and where you can use that to your best advantage. The last point that I will make on this particular part of your process is it has to match your station in life. Whenever, wherever, and however your productivity happens, it has to fit you like a glove. Square peg, round hole, you will not be able to fit anyone else's process into your process. Nor do you have to feel inadequate for not having the exact same tools, the exact same equipment, the exact same network, the exact same insert, whatever it is. Your process is good enough. As a matter of fact, I'll go a step further. Your process is perfect. It is the best process ever. Because guess what? Even if you had gold streaming out of your faucets at home, you are still going to be you. You're just going to have a little extra gold to deal with. But all of your personality quirks are still going to be there. So I hope that that is something that can help you move forward. Again, there is good news to be had in defining your writing process because you won't ever have to define it again. You may have to refine it, but your process will be so specific to who you are as a person that there won't be much room for anything else. At the point of refining your process, all you will be doing is tightening the screws that already exist.